My mom was an extraordinary woman and lived an extraordinary life. Maria Joanna Gerritsen Hummels, also known as Miep, or as we would call her Miepie. She was born in the Netherlands in a small town called Apeldoorn on August 20th, 1917. Her parents were Bernard and Maria Gerritsen. They owned and operated a grocery store, which came in handy with 12 children. My mom was the fifth child of 8 girls and 4 boys. It made for lots of gatherings. She told me once that their meals were like parties, especially when their friends would come over. Her family survived World War II, but on the last day, their grocery store and home were bombed. My mom met her husband, Cornelius Hummels, during wartime. Soon after, they got married on December 18th, 1945. And were married for over 60 years until my dad passed away. They started a family. First a son, Johannes Cornelius, then a daughter, Maria Katharina, a second daughter, Ingrid Maria, and then the best for last, me, Carolina Paulina. Living in Europe after the war was difficult. Homes and jobs were scarce. During the war, my dad helped the underground resistance and was sought after by the Nazis. A group called Stichting 1940 to 1945 helped my dad and his family immigrate to America. In December 1956, they landed in New York with $700 and 4 children. My dad took a job working for the town of Saltaire, located on Fire Island, a summer resort only accessible by boat. Being a summer resort, there were very few families that lived on the island during the winter months, and so we were only one of 3 families that lived in Saltaire. My dad was the town handyman, while my mom did laundry during the summer for the renters. As my mom would say, they scrimped and saved every penny, and in 1960 they were able to purchase a luncheonette in the next town over called Fair Harbor. We moved to Fair Harbor and literally lived in a little house. It was so small that only curtains divided the rooms. Okay, except the bathroom. It had no heat. I remember on winter mornings she would heat up our socks by laying them on the oven door. We all grew up working in the luncheonette, flipping burgers, scooping ice cream, selling candy, and doing dishes. It was a family affair. There were many storms and hurricanes on Fire Island. In 1961, my dad had to knock on all the doors in the town to evacuate everyone. We ended up being the last family to evacuate. In 1964, they purchased an old hardware store right next to the luncheonette. They wanted to turn it into a liquor store, but there was much opposition from the town folks. 2 years later, in 1966, they finally got a liquor license and were able to open the liquor store. In 1967, so we wouldn't have to move away during the winters, my dad built a winter home behind both of the businesses. In 1970, they decided to convert the luncheonette into a restaurant. Again, there was much opposition from the town. In 1972, they had an opportunity to purchase an old house. It was originally built on Long Island as a carriage house and was floated across the bay and relocated to Fair Harbor. 4 years later, in 1976, they purchased 3 empty lots and built yet another home. Finally, in 1977, when all the kids were married and left the island, my parents sold off everything. They retired and moved to sunny California. My mom loved the concept of family gatherings and reunions, or as she would say, reunions, which we had often. Even when they would go back to Holland, the families would get together, and trust me, there were many. We had 54 cousins just on my mom's side. They settled down in Leisure World and lived an active lifestyle. They traveled all over the world, but always going back to Holland every other year. During all of her years, my mom was the driving force behind all of the decisions that they made. She was an incredibly strong, determined, proud, yet practical woman. She would never partake in a pity party. Her attitude was, don't let things get you down, be strong. Do what you need to do and get on with it. You will have better opportunities next time. Don't get discouraged, just try harder. She is the reason I am as strong and determined as I am. My mom appreciated life. One time I asked why she joined the Italian club at Leisure World and not the Dutch club. Her answer was, "The Italians are so much more fun. They eat and drink and dance." And oh, how she loved to dance, and my dad could take her for a spin on the dance floor. She was also an avid table tennis player. Don't ever say ping pong. That was not the correct terminology. One time, our friend Michael was at our party, and my mom asked if he would like to play. Little did he know she could whip his butt. Her first serve went past him so fast he didn't know what hit him. She also loved needlepoint and created some beautiful works. She loved slip casting. You can see some of her works on display. She made so many of them for every holiday. We call them meepisms. It doesn't surprise me that she was the last surviving sibling. She was just so determined and strong. She will be forever in my heart and thoughts. Not a day goes by that I don't hear or see something that reminds me of her.